Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are here with Austin from Ohio, and today is Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. Today, I have some things for you that you may find interesting, and well, this first one that you're looking at, I read this from time to time. This is the Masonic Creed, is what it's called, but they call it a covenant or something like that. And John D. Rockefeller was the latest one to say it. And it was actually exposed by John Todd, who left the circle, or whatever you want to call it, the elites, Illuminati, Order of the Quest, whatever name you want to give them. And when he left, he exposed this, and he was killed. You can actually look that up. Pretty sure he might have also been CIA. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but just a couple things that I want to talk about real quick. As you could see, I have a new recording thing. Hello, this little guy right here. My other one was crashing, and I'm not sure how this one is going to work. I posted a little video earlier, just something stupid, and just to see if it was going to work, and it seems like it's going to be okay. I'm trying to find one that's going to allow me to write descriptions, because for some reason, whenever I did videos on the old one, I would go to write descriptions in the video, and it would say just created by the recorder, whatever, and I couldn't do anything about it. And I'm really, really hoping that this one allows me to write descriptions. But if not, I will work on it, and if not, then I will start to leave links in the comments. Another thing that I want to bring up, I post those little reminders that I'm going to be doing videos because YouTube's notification system, and you should all be very, very familiar with that. I post those for that reason, because it's important that, one, I want people to watch my videos. Two, it's important information. And three, it's my channel, and I can do whatever I want. I can post 1,000,000 times a day if I want, and I don't care. I mean, I wouldn't do that, but I mainly do that because of YouTube's notification system. I had somebody tell me before that I need to quit doing that because it's super annoying, and he was the only person to tell me that. I forget who it was, and it doesn't really matter. But yes, the only reason that I do that is because of those little problems that YouTube seems to have. Also, I was watching one of Carol's videos earlier, and she kept saying that, in multiple videos she kept saying that, oh, I'm sorry, my videos are too long, this and that. First of all, Carol, if you are listening, you should never, ever apologize for the length of your videos. Second, I will never apologize for the length of my videos, because my videos usually run over an hour or so, or close to it. Third, it makes me very mad that people, none of you guys in my community or what we have going on here have complained about the length of my videos, and I'm thankful for that. But if people are going to get mad about the length of a video, if you can't sit through an hour-long video from time to time, or even different days, how the hell do you expect to rid yourself of the chains that we find ourselves in? You can't watch or listen to an hour-long video, but you're going to somehow help the rest of us free humanity from the shackles of the New World Order? I don't get that. I really don't. And I guess it's their fault, but it's also our fault. Our attention spans are so short because, well, they've done that on purpose in the instant gratification society that we live in. Which actually brings me right into this. This is not only used by the Masons, not only said by John D. Rockefeller. You may have heard this in a lot of other videos and different things from time to time, but I heard it on one of ODD's videos more recently, and I decided that I heard it before and all that, and I said I need to get that into writing, and it took me forever to find it because I didn't know what it was called. But this is it, and this kind of goes with things that we're going to be talking about today, and basically just what they believe in general and how it works. But what I did was I found it, and for some reason I couldn't bookmark the site that it came from. Well, I'm pretty sure I found it in PDF format. I forget. It's been a little bit. So I had to copy and paste it into my notes. But this is what they believe, and you'll see exactly that is the case. And I read this from time to time because this is very important to understand. And this is the Covenant, Creed, whatever you want to call it, and I will start reading it now. And it was exposed by John Todd, who was then murdered because it's their entire thing, what they believe. And at the end, you will see what they acknowledge. They acknowledge something that's very important. Of all of this, and it's very lengthy. Look at this. It's very lengthy, but in all of it, at the very end, they acknowledge something that is very important. Something that we all need to understand. But says we will use our knowledge of science and technology in subtle ways, so they will never see what is happening. We will use soft metals, aging accelerators, and sedatives in food and water, also in the air. They will be blanketed by poisons everywhere they turn. Soft metals will cause them to lose their minds. We will promise to find a cure from our many fronts, yet we will feed them more poison. The poisons will be absorbed through their skin and mouths. They will destroy their minds' reproductive systems. For all this, their children will be born dead. We will conceal this information. The poisons will be hidden in everything that surrounds them, in what they drink, eat, breathe, and wear. We must be ingenious in dispensing the poisons, for they can see far. We will teach them that the poisons are good, with fun images and musical tones. Those they look up to will help. We will enlist them to push our poisons. They will see our products being used in film, and will grow accustomed to them, and will never know their true effect. When they give birth, we will inject poisons into the blood of their children and convince them it's for their help. We will start early on when their minds are young. We will target their children with what children love most, sweet things. When their teeth decay, we will fill them with metals that will kill their mind and steal their future. When their ability to learn has been affected, we will create medicine that will make them sicker and cause other diseases, for which we will create yet more medicine. We will render them docile and weak before us by our power. They will grow depressed, slow, and obese. And when they come to us for help, we will give them more poison. We will focus their attention toward money and material goods, so they may never connect with their inner self. We will distract them with fornication, external pleasures, and games, so they may never be one with the oneness of it all. Their minds will belong to us, and they will do as we say. If they refuse, we shall find ways to implement mind-altering technology into their lives. We will use fear as our weapon. We will establish their governments and establish opposites within. We will own both sides. We will always hide our objective, but carry out our plan. They will perform the labor for us, and we shall prosper from their toil. Our families will never mix with theirs. Our blood must be pure always, for it is the way. We will make them kill each other when it suits us. We will keep them separated from the oneness by dogma and religion. We will control all aspects of their lives and tell them what to think and how. We will guide them kindly and gently, letting them think they are guiding themselves. We will foment animosity between them through our factions. When a light shall shine among them, we shall extinguish it by ridicule or death, whichever suits us best. We will make them rip each other's hearts apart and kill their own children. We will accomplish this by using hate as our ally, anger as our friend. The hate will blind them totally, and never shall they see from their conflicts we emerge as their rulers. They will be busy killing each other. They will bathe in their own blood and kill their neighbors for as long as we see fit. We will benefit greatly from this, for they will not see us, for they cannot see us. We will continue to prosper from their wars and their deaths. We shall repeat this over and over until our ultimate goal is accomplished, which we know their ultimate goal is the New World Order. We will continue to make them live in fear and anger through images and sounds. We will use all the tools we have to accomplish this. The tools will be provided by their labor. We will make them hate themselves and their neighbors. We will always hide the divine truth from them, that we are all one. This they must never know. They must never know that a man's color is an illusion. They must always think that they are not equal. Drop by drop, drop by drop, we will advance our goal. We will take over their land, resources, and wealth to exercise total control over them. We will deceive them into accepting laws that will steal the little freedom they have left. They will have. Boy, the mind sees what it wants, huh? Just kidding. We will establish a money system that will imprison them forever, keeping them and their children in debt. When they shall band together, we shall accuse them of crimes and present a different story to the world, for we shall own all the media. We will use our media to control the flow of information and their sentiment in our favor. When they shall rise up against us, we will crush them, like insects, for they are less than that. They will be helpless to do anything, for they will have no weapons. We will recruit some of their own to carry out our plans. We will promise them eternal life, but eternal life they will never have, for they are not of us. The recruits will be called initiates, and will be indoctrinated to believe false rites of passage to higher realms. Members of these groups will think they are one with us, never knowing the truth. They must never learn this truth, for they will turn against us. For their work they will be rewarded with earthly things and great titles. But never will they become immortal and join us. Never will they receive the light and travel the stars. They will never reach the higher realms, for the killing of their own kind will prevent passage to the realm of enlightenment. This they will never know. The truth will be hidden in their face so close, they will not be able to focus on it until it's too late. Oh yes, so grand the illusion of freedom will be, that they will never know that they are our slaves. When all is in place, the reality we will have created for them will own them. This reality will be their prison. They will live in self-delusion. When our goal is accomplished, the New World Order, a new era of domination will begin. Their minds will be bound by their beliefs, the beliefs we have established from time immemorial. But if they ever find out that this is my favorite part. Guys, listen to this part, for it is very important. But if they ever find out they are our equal, we shall perish then. This they must never know. If they ever find out that together they can vanquish us, they will take action. They must never ever find out what we have done. For if they do, we shall have no place to run, for it will be easy to see who we are once the veil has fallen. Our actions will have revealed who we are, and they will hunt us down, and no person shall give us shelter. This is the secret covenant by which we shall live the rest of our present and future lives, for this reality will transcend many generations and lifespans. This covenant is sealed by blood, our blood. We are the ones who from heaven to earth came. This covenant must never, ever be known to exist. It must never, ever be written or spoken of, for if it is, the consciousness it will spawn will release the fury of the Prime Creator upon us, and we shall be cast to the depths from whence we came and remain there until the end time of infinity itself. So you see that they acknowledge that we are equals. They acknowledge that they would have no place to run if we all ever were to band together and rise up and destroy these people. And they acknowledge that God, the Prime Creator, will come down on them if we ever found out what was going on and we found out the truth. This is terrifying. And the reason that this was able to be released was because of that John Todd guy. And down here where it says it must never be written, oh look, I have it written right here. What are you going to do? They ain't going to do nothing. Because they can't do anything except take my videos down. And if anybody ever came here, they would have a very hard time getting me to get rid of this. But you could see exactly what is going on. And they just keep repeating it and repeating it and repeating it and repeating it. Let's move on to the main part of this video. I'm sure you guys saw this today, and this does not surprise me because if you remember the people that were here before, and I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it, myself and many others have predicted this. We knew that this was coming. Right as soon as they started coming out with their bills and they introduced them, I specifically said, when I was reading HR 127, I said you're going to see a rise, an uptick in these events, and then right before they go to ram through, you're going to see some of the big ones. And that's exactly what has happened again today. Or yesterday, I forget which one it was, but recently. 10 killed, including police officer in Colorado supermarket shooting. The attack in Boulder was the 7th mass killing this year in the U.S. A shooting at a Colorado supermarket killed 10 people Monday, including a police officer who was the first to respond to the scene, authorities said. Police arrested a suspect, but didn't reveal his name or any details about the shooting at an evening news conference where Boulder Police Chief Maris Harold fought back tears. Investigators had just begun sorting through evidence and witness interviews. It didn't have details on a motive for the shooting at the King Superstore in Boulder, which is about 25 miles northwest of Denver and home to the University of Colorado, said Boulder County District Attorney Michael Daughtry. This is a tragedy and a nightmare for Boulder County, Daughtry said. These were people going about their day, doing their shopping. I promised the victims that the people of the state of Colorado that we will secure justice. And they say it was the 7th attack in the year, following the March 16th that left 8 people dead at 3 Atlanta area spa businesses. And here's the, it was from yesterday. Okay, so March 22nd. Oh, 322 Day. Skull and Bones. It follows a lull in mass killings during the coronavirus pandemic in 2020, which had the smallest number of such attacks in more than a decade, according to the database which tracks mass killings defined as 4 or more dead, not including the shooter. Well, yeah, because they were focused on the setting up the Great Reset. Slain officer was identified as Eric Talley, 51, who had been with Boulder Police since 2010. And I believe this is him. Yep. Just one of those things that they're going to keep going. They're going to keep going with it until we give up. Our firearms, that is. Let's move on to the next one. And this is pretty much a continuation of the last one. The Colorado attack is the 7th mass shooting in 7 days in the U.S. The mass shooting at a supermarket in Boulder, Colorado on Monday took place less than a week after 8 people were killed in a series of attacks on spas in Atlanta. The 2 incidents are likely to spur discussion about gun control legislation in the United States, where firearm deaths are tragically common. I would say that discussion about gun control legislation spurred these 2 incidents. They're also among at least 7 mass shootings in the past week across the United States, including 3 incidents on Saturday alone. And CNN defines a mass shooting as a shooting incident which results in 4 or more casualties, excluding the shooter. Then we got Tuesday, Atlanta, Georgia. We know about that one. Wednesday, 5 people were preparing a vigil in Stockton, California's Central Valley, were shot in a drive-by shooting. Gresham, Oregon, March 18th. 4 victims were taken to the hospital after a shooting in the city east of Portland. Saturday, 3 of them happened: Dallas, Houston, and Philadelphia. 5 people were shot after a disturbance inside the club. 1 was critical condition after being shot in the neck. The rest were in stable condition. 8 people were shot by an unknown assailant, 1 of whom died. I have a question about this, actually. 5 people were shot after a disturbance inside a club. 1 was in critical condition after being shot in the neck. The rest were in stable condition. So nobody died. Oh, never mind, actually. Mass shooting, dead or wounded. Okay, I must have glanced over that part. So they define mass shooting as dead or wounded more than 4 people, excluding the shooter. But most people don't know that, and what they think when they hear of mass shooting is a whole bunch of people being killed. I will be willing to bet anything. I will bet my next 6 months. I will be willing to bet my next 6 months' paychecks that in each one of these, or maybe just this one and the Atlanta one, that the shooters were on psychotropic drugs, had contact with the FBI, and were part of MKUltra. In Bill Cooper's book, Behold a Pale Horse, he talks about, and that came out before Columbine, he talks about how there's going to be, because he was reading about Project Orion, MKUltra, MK Naomi. He understood that they were trying to abolish the Second Amendment here in the United States. And he said that there was going to be shootings in shopping centers and schoolyards and other places throughout the United States in order to turn the people's minds against the right to keep and bear arms. That's exactly what's happening here. And let's see. This ought to help with the narrative a little bit. Gun in supermarket shooting bought 6 days earlier. Well, there's your 6. They always got to have the 6. Get out of here. I'm not even going to hit that X. Police on Tuesday identified 21-year-old man as the suspect who opened fire inside a crowded Colorado supermarket. And court documents showed that he purchased an assault weapon less than a week before the attack that killed 10 people, including a police officer. Supermarket employees told investigators that Ahmad Al-Aliwi, Alisa, shot an elderly man multiple times Monday outside the Boulder grocery store before going inside, according to the documents. Another person was found shot in a vehicle next to a car registered as suspect's brother. Authorities said Alisa was from the Denver suburb of Arvada and that he engaged in a shootout with police inside the store. Suspect was being treated at a hospital and was expected to be booked into the county jail later in the day on murder charges. Investigators have not established a motive, but they believe he was the only shooter, Boulder County District Attorney Michael Daughtry said. In Washington, President Joe Biden called on Congress to tighten the nation's gun laws. And he said, quote, 10 lives have been lost and more families have been shattered by gun violence in the state of Colorado. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer vowed to bring forward 2 House-passed bills to require expanded background checks for gun buyers. Biden supports the measures, but they face tougher route to passage in a closely divided Senate with a slim Democratic majority. The suspect purchased the assault weapon just 6 days before the shooting on March 16th, according to the arrest affidavit released Tuesday. It was not immediately known where the gun was purchased. Shooting came 10 days after a judge blocked a ban on assault rifles passed by the city of Boulder, 2018. That ordinance and other banning large capacity magazines came after the 2018 mass shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, in Parkland, Florida that left 17 dead. So this shooting came 10 days after a judge blocked a ban on assault rifles passed by the city of Boulder in 2018. So, see how this stuff works? The judge comes out, checks and balances, and they block it. And then, oh, what do you know? Just randomly, here's a shooting. It's not that hard to see, guys. A lawsuit challenging the bans was filed quickly, backed by the NRA. Judge struck down the ordinance under Colorado law that blocks cities from making their own rules about guns. And they say he was suffering from some type of mental illness, including delusions. Yep, and just stuff like that. Attack was the nation's deadliest mass shooting since 2019 assault on Walmart in El Paso, Texas, where a gunman killed 22 people in a rampage that police said targeted Mexicans. Gunfire sent terrorized shoppers and employees scrambling for cover. SWAT officers carrying ballistic shields approached the King Superstore, while others escorted frightened people away from the building, which had some of its windows shattered. Customers and employees fled through a back loading dock to safety. Others took refuge in nearby shops. Multiple 911 calls paint a picture of a chaotic, terrifying scene, according to the affidavit. And we don't really have to go through all of this stuff here. It just explains how it happened. But this stuff's going to keep happening. Just like how they keep threatening us. Like, remember when Obama was threatening us? And he said, oh, if you guys don't give up your guns and we don't pass this stuff, these things are just going to keep happening. Moving on. This is from Fox News 5 hours ago. Biden considering executive action on gun control, Psaki says. But the president implored the Senate to pass House bills that would close background check loopholes. So basically what he's saying is that if the Senate doesn't do what needs to be done, then he's going to use his dictatorial powers to circumvent the Constitution. And that's reality, and that's the truth. President Biden is considering executive action on gun control in the wake of 2 mass shootings in less than a week, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Tuesday. Psaki did not specify what action Biden might take. We are considering a range of levers, including working through legislation, including executive action, Psaki told reporters. That had been under discussion and will continue to be under discussion. Biden, addressing a shooting that occurred in Boulder, Colorado that left 10 dead, said Tuesday he didn't want to wait another minute, let alone hour, to act on gun violence. A shooting... Oh, what happened? Stupid ads. A shooting 6 days earlier left 8 dead in Atlanta, Georgia. He didn't mention political executive... I hate this. He didn't mention potential executive action, but implored the Senate to pass a series of House bills that would close loopholes in background checks. He also urged Congress to ban, quote, assault weapons. And he said, I got that done as a senator. It brought down mass shootings. We could do it again. You can actually go look at the real statistic from the database. And it didn't really do much. Biden said during remarks at the White House, we can ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines in this country once again. Here's something for you. Anybody should be able to see what they are doing. They have always committed these false flags. Always. And the agenda is to disarm the American people, who to this day remain the only people in the world actually armed enough to liberate not only ourselves, but the entire world from this New World Order. And this is part of the Great Reset. And I got more stuff to show you on that too. But people need to understand that our founding fathers stood up to the British, which was the most powerful government and military in their time, because they were trying to take away weapons and stuff like that, among other things. But then check this out. These are bills that receive votes with both Republicans and Democrats in the House. Well, of course, because when it comes to stuff like this, they're best friends. Because the left and the right will always work together. That is the truth. And the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution states, quote, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And check this out. This is not and should not be a partisan issue. This is an American issue that will save lives, American lives. We have to act. We should also ban assault weapons in the process. Oh, if we're going to do this background check stuff, might as well ban assault weapons, right? I cannot believe that this is happening once again. I thought people were waking up back during the Obama years, whenever these things were happening every single week. And even the people that don't know anything about this stuff were like, wait, this is kind of weird. Well, of course it's weird. How was Hitler able to consolidate complete power in Germany? How was he able to march many people off to ovens and to gas showers? What is the first thing that he did when he took power? He banned firearms. And again, I will say, you know how many people you know or that you see every day that own guns? I would say 90% of them, and that's being very loose, fast and loose with that term. Do you know how many people that own guns that would never hurt a soul? That wasn't trying to hurt them or their family? You should already know the answer to that. It's not that hard to understand these things. It's really not. They start introducing let's look at the chain of events. They introduce these gun control bills. They get them all introduced, ready to go. And they line up the papers on their desk. That's how I just thought of it. Like, all right, let's take a look here. A couple days later, maybe a week or so later, ready for deliberation. Boom. Shooting. Week after that, boom. Another one. If these things were organic as they claim, then I would not have been able to sit there and say that this was going to happen. Nobody would. You can't predict something like this. And you can still go back on my main channel and watch those videos. The one's called HR 127 Text and Rant. The other one's called Rise in Certain Events and something else. There's a few more. Let's move on to the next one. This is from the United Nations. I am on the United Nations site right now. See, welcome to the United Nations, right up there at the top. UN.org/EN Chronicle, whatever. Small arms, no single solution. It's time to act against gun violence. Reduce existing stockpile. Reduce supply of new weapons. Close the gates between legal and illegal markets. Reduce motivation for acquiring guns. You want to know why this stuff's happening? And already happened in the other countries that were easier to disarm? And they can't go one by one and be like, okay, so Australia, get rid of guns, now let's do what we're going to do to them. England, get rid of guns, let's do what we're going to do to them. No, they have to wait. Because if they did that, then people in the United States would see that and we would be like, oh no, you ain't taking our guns because we're not getting marched off to no FEMA camp. We're not getting marched off to no oven. Keep in mind the whole time that I'm reading this, that this is from the United Nations. 1,000 people die each day from gunshot wounds, and 3 times as many are left with severe injuries. If the death, injury, and disability resulting from small arms were categorized as a disease, it would qualify as an epidemic. Yet the media and popular perception tend to suggest that gun violence is simply an unavoidable consequence of human cruelty or deprivation rather than a public health problem which can be prevented or at least reduced. Circumstances of gun violence vary so enormously. It would be simplistic to suggest a single solution. A comprehensive approach reflecting the multifaceted nature of the problem is needed to bring down the grim toll of global death and injury. Nonetheless, the high school massacres in the U.S., armed gangs in Brazil, or the systematic sexual violence in the Democratic Republic of the Congo all share a common denominator: the availability of guns, or small arms as they are known in UN circles. And the practical steps toward reducing the availability and misuse of small arms can be classed under 4 headings. And we already read those. Why does this one say demand? Reducing the motivation for acquiring guns. Demand. Reducing the existing stockpile. The existing global small arms stockpile is huge. At least 875 million guns, according to the Small Arms Survey in Geneva. Less than 25% of these are in the possession of armies, police, or other government agencies. The remaining 3/4 are in the hands of civilians. Good. Good. That's how it should be. The people should always have more arms than their respective governments. And together we should all have more arms than all of our governments combined. Guns on Earth outnumber cars by about 40%. How can we reduce this enormous pool of weapons? Reducing the existing state stockpile. The best place to start is with government arsenals, which by nature are easier to identify and affect than the diffuse civilian holdings. With large amounts of weaponry concentrated in a few locations, a focus on the state stockpile is the quickest way to make a dent in the sheer number of guns on the planet. Governments may consider large armories to be necessary for national defense, but they overestimate their need. According to the Small Arms Survey, 38% of military small arms in government arsenals are surplus to requirements. This represents not only a large waste of resources in buying the guns, recording them, storing, maintaining, and guarding them, but also serious hazard to military and civilian populations living near accumulations of surplus weapons. In addition to the physical danger of explosions, surplus stocks act as a magnet for traffickers, insurgents, criminals, often with tragic results. The grave threat posed by the surplus guns and ammunition has been formally recognized by the UN Small Arms Process. A UN group of governmental experts on surplus ammunition was established by the General Assembly in late 2007, and disposal of surplus weapons was one of the priority topics at the third biennial meeting of states on small arms and light weapons in 2008. The consistent advice is that governments should systematically identify and destroy their surplus stock. So yes, it will be governments, it will be us, because there's only going to be one world army to maintain peace, and those are the peacekeepers. Reducing the existing civilian stockpile. That's us. Disarming civilian populations is more difficult than disarming governments. Nevertheless, it is arguably more necessary given that civilians constitute the overwhelming majority not only of gun owners but also of victims and perpetrators of gun violence. Many countries have implemented voluntary programs encouraging citizens to surrender weapons in exchange for cash, household goods, or other benefits to individuals. In weapons for development schemes. When do you ever use that word? I've said this before. The reward for handing in guns is development assistance to improve educational, economic, and security conditions for the entire community. The success of voluntary collection has varied around the world. Ad hoc local initiatives in U.S. cities have mostly recovered small numbers of guns because people don't turn their stuff in. They have them around me all the time. Oh, bring on your gun down to the police station and we'll give you a $100 gift card to Walmart. How about I'll keep my defense and I will only ever give it up if all of them give it up first. If all governments in the United Nations all give up their guns, I would consider giving mine up. Larger quantities tend to be recovered where the collection is part of a coherent national policy and where people will perceive that local security is improving. Obligatory weapons collection programs also have mixed results. Australia and Brazil removed huge numbers of guns from circulation, 650,000 and 450,000 respectively. That's sad. With programs based on dual incentive, cash compensation, legislative changes making it harder to qualify to own guns legally. The latter meant that many owners faced the possibility of being in illegal possession of their previously legal weapons if they kept them after the buyback. So basically they're admitting that they made criminals out of a lot of people. And not if, they ban guns, and it won't just be, quote, assault weapons. It'll be handguns. It'll be bolt action, lever action, 22s, revolvers, probably even BB guns, you name it. I will not be giving up anything. And that's because I value my life, and I value my wife's life, and our lifestyle, and I value the life of the people around me. And I've taken it upon myself to be the watcher of my block, per se. So I will not be giving up anything, no matter how, quote, illegal it is, because to me, those laws are illegal, which, according to the Constitution, they are. On the other hand, a forcible... wait. Importantly, both of these buybacks were part of comprehensive national initiatives, including massive public awareness programs, reforms to police procedures. On the other hand, a forcible disarmament program in Uganda, where soldiers searched houses and assaulted civilians, forcing them to surrender their arms, recovered relatively few guns, and exacerbated the feeling of insecurity among the population. Well, no shit, Sherlock. If soldiers are coming in your house and tearing your house apart, terrorizing your family, what are you going to do? They're like, "Oh, we're going to come take your weapon because you might be aggressive," as we aggressively come in your house and tear it apart and throw you on the ground and throw your wife against the wall and whatever else. Destruction of existing weapons, whether from state arsenals, defeated enemies, arrested criminals, or civilian owners, small arms that are in surplus, obsolete, seized, surrendered, or otherwise removed from circulation should be destroyed. Though this may seem an obvious point, it appears to have eluded many governments. They downsize their arsenal to save costs or to comply with international agreements, then seek to make profit by selling weapons, either locally or overseas, rather than reducing the global stockpile. Such a practice simply redistributes it, shifting the danger from one community or country to another. Here's something. How dangerous is it to my neighbors that I own firearms? Not at all. You know why? Because I would never, ever use them against any of them because my neighbors are awesome. Let's see, where was I at? Okay, they downsize their arsenal to save costs or to comply with international agreements. Oh yeah, like, international government. Then seek to make a profit by selling the weapons either locally or overseas, rather than reducing the global stockpile. Such a practice simply redistributes it. I already read all of this. Why am I reading this again? This was famously exemplified by the fire sale of tens of millions of guns from ex-Soviet armies at the end of the Cold War, with catastrophic results for Africa. This practice still thrives in the Balkans. For example, in 2004, Bosnia had more than 850,000 small arms left over from the 1990s war. Some 100,000 at maximum have since been destroyed, while far more have been exported, supposedly to Afghanistan and Iraq. But officials there are unable to say where the weapons are. Reducing the supply of new weapons. We don't have to read all of this, because it's quite a lot. I really wanted to get to something else, but I will come back to this, actually. The small arms market is truly globalized. Half the world's countries produce small arms or ammunition, and 100% of countries buy them. Though at least 875 million guns are already in circulation, it appears the market is not saturated, since an estimated 8 million new small arms are manufactured each year. One practical step toward disarmament is to slow the stream of new weapons coming into circulation. Thus far, no government has been prepared to suggest reducing worldwide production, even by imposing maximum quotas. However, most countries now acknowledge the need for some limitations or constraint, or at least rules on international sales of these arms. Reducing the international supply of new weapons, the Arms Trade Treaty, ATT. Some international transfers of weapons are obviously irresponsible. For example, if the weapons will arm an uprising against a legitimate government, or if they will be diverted into the hands of organized criminal gangs. The Arms Trade Treaty is an initiative to stop the most irresponsible transfers from going ahead, by asking officials from the exporting and transit countries to consider how the weapons are likely to be used and where they may end up. The proposed treaty would circulate global standard for governments to apply when deciding whether to authorize the international transfer of small arms or other conventional weapons. This is one of the things that I was telling you about the United Nations. This isn't the document itself, but this is pretty good. But as you can see so far, this is why they're trying to disarm. Has nothing to do with saving people's lives at all. That's just the excuse. Governments have to be in line with this. I'll pick this one up in tomorrow's video, but I wanted to get to something else. Why they're doing this. We'll go there now. Gun control and the New World Order. Gun control and the New World Order. You could check the following item out very quickly at the Library of Congress or at any large metropolitan reference library, and I can promise you it won't be time wasted. And it just says, like, ask for a copy, this and that. Well, ask for a copy of Volume 9 of the 1982 edition, not the current replacement edition of the U.S. Code. Turn to page 554, where you'll find the beginning of Public Law number 87-297, 1961. This law was signed by President Kennedy in 1962. Has received 18 subsequent updates, and its provisions have been steadily implemented by every president since. Calls for the elimination of U.S. national forces, and further declares that no one may possess a firearm or lethal weapon except police or military personnel. The progressive steps in its implementation are the reduction of U.S. armed forces to 2.1 million personnel. That's already done. Their irrevocable merger with the Russian and Chinese forces. 2 stages to form a world army. 50% total U.S. force. Strength will be merged with the first stage. The remaining 50%, the second stage. The irrevocable surrender of authority over such forces to the UN Secretary General, who already has a military planning staff of 80 general officers. The confiscation of all privately held firearms. There it is again. This law is taught and explained in the National War College and the various U.S. Armed Forces academies. The New World Order will require an army. This is it. And presumably the U.S. itself and Canada could then find itself policed by foreign troops under the UN flag. By agreement, the commander of this army must always be a Russian. See below for documentation on this astonishing fact. Now, what I am reading to you is actual fact. And you can even look this up in your own time. It's all right here. The relevant pages and sections are page 554, 555, lower right-hand side of the page, defines disarmament as elimination of U.S. forces and calls for absolute restrictions on privately owned deadly weapons. Page 557, sections A and D again require U.S. to eliminate its armed forces. 558 deals with policy formulation. The accomplishment of these goals, George Bush, Sr., not Jr., said the passing of authority to the Secretary General was in transition. The Supreme Court has already ruled that the U.S. Constitution and its provisions stand under the UN Charter and the resolutions of the United Nations. We already know that. We went over that. The U.S. Armed Forces are acting as the UN's world policemen in the interim. We went over that too. And it also says that after the U.S. acts as the world's policeman, people always ask, oh, who made the U.S. the world police? Ask the United Nations. And they will tell you, hey, we did. Until a time when all the work's done, then they're going to transfer it over to us. And then they're going to abolish themselves. The provisions of this law are further explained in State Department Publication 72-77, which itself is a published in unabridged form and 35-page blueprint for the peace race, published by U.S. Arms Control and Disarmament Agency, publication number 4, General Series number 3, May 1962. I'm sure you find this hard to believe, but it's all there in black and white. Read it for yourself. Implications are staggering, but the multiple military base closings around the U.S. take on a new perspective when you see the agenda which that law commits the U.S. government to follow. Another small tip is that new issues of uniforms, the new Air Force uniform repeatedly have no U.S. insignia. Canadian politicians are operating in lockstep with the U.S. counterparts on all these issues, including gun control. Update: 1995 law now requires all 7 million rifles, etc. in Canada to be registered by 2003. Failure to comply will be a serious criminal offense. And what just happened in Canada this past year? Did they not ban rifles? Many Canadians rightly see this as prelude to later wholesale gun confiscation. Please go read these documents for yourself. It's astonishing, but it's exactly as I've described to you. North American Free Trade Agreement is a small but vital part of something much bigger. First Continental Union, then World Federalism. Don't be misled by the wording of policy formulation on page 558 in Volume 9. U.S. Code 1982. It was rewritten in 1963 to pacify objectors and forbids removal of firearms from the populace or reduction in national arms strength unless it's pursuant to the treaty-making power of the President or authorized by the legislation of the Congress. The UN Charter is regarded as an already binding treaty, so all that is required is a UN resolution or congressional legislation to ban all citizen armaments. George Bush's father, Preston, which would be Senior's dad, Junior's granddad, and his name's Prescott, actually, not Preston. This guy must have got it wrong. Helped push this law 87-297 through Congress. One of the experts on it is ex-state Senator Bernardine Smith, Box 1776, Hanford, California 93232, who resisted it bitterly and knows its contents and intent as well as anybody. Or you could just call the National War College, asking innocently for more information on it. Two interesting footnotes on Public Law 87-297. 200 members of the Trilateral Commission had late March 93 meeting over several days in Washington, at which they discussed and agreed on the need for, guess what? A new world army for UN sovereign control of individual states, immigration policies and decisions. On the evening of 28 March, their representatives dined with key U.S. government officials, presented these recommendations, and then did the same thing over breakfast the next morning with Clinton. So here it comes. This will lead ultimately to an enormous concentration of power in very few hands. There's no new world order. Again, I will say, if anybody wants to tell me that there's no new world order, I will show you that there is, in fact, a new world order. And we're actually in it right now. We're in, like, we were in the beginning a while ago, but we're, like, almost to the part where they're going to reveal it. The only thing standing in their way is the patriots in the United States of America who keep and bear arms. The BATF, or simply we just know them as the ATF, or ATFE, whatever they're going by now. You know, the people that burn down buildings and kill children. As the compliance and enforcement arm of the Treasury Department, which is a CFR man heading it, has been unlawfully compelling gun shop owners across the U.S. to provide the names, addresses, and zip codes of all long gun, rifle, and shotgun purchasers, when no legal requirement exists for this. They are apparently creating a computerized registry of all private weapons across the United States, by locality, street, and house. Remember the confiscation requirement for all weapons embodied in a blueprint for the peace race in State Department publication 72-77. This law is in the current edition of the U.S. Code, although the page numbers have been changed. You can find it fairly easily by checking the index to the U.S. Code. The New World Army must always be headed by a Russian. When Alger Hiss, later accused of being a Soviet spy, and convicted and imprisoned for perjury, set up the United Nations with his U.S. State Department colleagues, they established the UN Department of Political and Security Affairs, which would have jurisdiction over all future UN military operations. Written in the fine print of the rules and regulations which govern the UN is the rule that the head of this UN department will always be a Soviet citizen. military officer or person designated by the Soviets. This has been the case for the past 47 years, with the following 14 communists having chaired that vital UN post since 1946. These are the people that were in charge of it. All were Soviet citizens. If you think that communism is dead, you're in for a rude awakening. The names and faces have changed, not the politicians, parties, military hierarchies, or the vast Russian expenditures on military weaponry and material. If you think the UN army will be benign, you'll quickly reconsider. When foreign troops, UN troops, under ultimately Russian command are drafted into your neighborhood to suppress dissent or restore order. Under the New World Order, they will be armed and you won't. So you think this is fanciful? Read this UPI news item, which appeared on 9/8/93. Russian-American defense agreement calls for joint maneuvers. United States and Russia signed into an agreement Wednesday on military cooperation that provides for joint military maneuvers by the two former Cold War foes. The Russian Defense Minister, General of the Army Pavel Grachev, visiting Washington, signed a memorandum of understanding with Defense Secretary Les Aspin at the Pentagon ceremony. The agreement calls for two sides to hold joint maneuvers that practice peacekeeping techniques. The agreement also calls for annual meetings between Grachev and Aspin and their successors, exchanges between Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff and his Russian counterpart, bilateral defense working group to formulate projects of Russian-American defense. This is still going on. They still do this every single year. And you know what we do? Watch TV, whatever else. Most people don't read this stuff. No way. The ceremony demonstrates again that the relationship between our two countries is undergoing historic transformation, as has been said. By the way, in the New World Order, the region that Russia would be in is a restored, strengthened, more unified Soviet Union. As Clinton and Yeltsin said at the Vancouver Summit meeting, we're establishing a strategic partnership. It's a partnership which military and defense relations play a leading role. Russia places highest priority on the cooperation with the United States. We promise to do all in our power to realize this agreement. The Russian-American ground maneuvers will train two sides in peacekeeping techniques. The first units, there's a cop going really slow up my road. What are you doing? You better get moving. Keep moving. Yeah. He stopped and he was staring at me to make sure I was in the car. Now, what if I wasn't? What's he going to do? This part just basically says that the U.S. and Russia are holding joint military exercises and they fly over each other all the time. They want to establish a hotline between their respective defense establishments, although provision for that was not actually in the agreement they signed. In addition to joint peacekeeping exercises, it calls for annual meetings between Aspin and Grachev and their successors, exchanges between the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, blah, blah, blah. We already read that. And then the 3rd Division commander joked, said if it's okay with them, we can go to Siberia and hold them there. One of the best, most detailed and readable books you can find on the topic of the New World Order is Toward a New World Order by Don McAlvany. See The New World Order Intelligence Update, which dealt with the Elite Commission for Global Governance 1995 report. Our global neighborhood shows you what's coming fast. 1998 UN-sponsored World Conference on Global Governance is scheduled to review these recommendations and fully implement them worldwide by the year 2000. Most of that stuff, yes, it was implemented by the year 2000, but resistance from populations, other governments that weren't up to snuff and weren't for it, have got them to back it up. They still got all this going on, but now they got it backed up to 2030. Hopefully, we can keep them at bay. And this is just one aspect, guys. One tiny aspect. But it gets worse still. Our global neighborhood smoothly presents this revolutionary principle. Sovereignty and territorial inviolability of nation states have been bedrock tenets of the world system. States have valued these fundamental to the protection of their independence and legitimacy. Small and less powerful states in particular have seen in these principles their main defense against more powerful, predatory countries, and have looked to the world community to uphold these norms. And it says, in an increasingly interdependent world in which old notions of territoriality, independence, and intervention have lost some of their meaning, these traditional principles need to be adapted. Nations are having to accept that in certain fields, sovereignty has to be exercised collectively, particularly in relation to global commons. It's communism, guys, is what it is. Global communism. The principle of sovereignty must be adapted in such a way as to balance the rights of states with the rights of people, interest of nations, and the interest of global neighborhood. Are we beginning to see the pattern here? Governments. You don't have any control over anything significant now, so just go huddle with your citizens and share the governance. States. Before someone invaded you, you could expect the world community to come to your rescue. But now if you try to back out of our new globalist system or stray out of line, it'll be the world community itself that will be doing the invading. And states, just so that you're increasingly weakened to the point of non-resistance, will be busily telling your citizens that people are more important than states and referring to you as mere nations. Oh, and welcome to the neighborhood. Combined with its recommendations for global disarmament, except for the UN, that is, which will retain an impressive, loyal, and heavily armed rapid reaction force, aka the New World Army, which will leave states' military helpless in the face of international aggression under the guise of policing. We find this reassuring recommendation. We must strive to ensure that the global neighborhood of the future is characterized by law, not lawlessness, by rules which all must respect, that none, even the most powerful, is above the law. And it just keeps going on like that. But check this part out. And if you are a dissident or a register of any sort, an outlaw in our new global neighborhood, remember that. You can run, but you can't hide. In the coming Fourth Reich, we will busily monitoring and enforcing compliance everywhere. Is that not what they're doing now? Who will be paying for all of this? Why, you will, of course. There is no free lunch in this nice new neighborhood, just a whole bunch of heavily enforced new responsibilities in exchange for a meager handful of rights. A start must be made in establishing schemes of global financing of global purposes, including changes for the use of global resources such as flight lanes, sea lanes, ocean fishing areas, and collection of global revenues agreed globally by and implemented by treaty. Is that not happening? International tax on foreign currency transactions should be explored as one option, as should the creation of international corporate tax base among multinational companies. It's time for the evolution of consensus on the concept of global taxation for servicing the needs of the global neighborhood. And then they say, doesn't that make it sound warm and folksy? Although, as though you'll just be paying the UN to pick up your garbage each week, but don't forget that water and air are global resources, as is living space. Right now, you get them for free or almost for free. Get ready for the day when you pay a tax to grow carrots in your own back garden. Soil is a global resource, belongs to the globe, not to you. And you could already tell a lot of this is in Agenda 21. Check this out. You may be thinking if things get really bad, there'll be a revolution. We can always fight back and reassert our freedom. Think again, then forget about it fast before you become a candidate for future elimination. They've thought of that too, and here's the recommendation. An emphasis on the security of people requires the world to address the culture of violence in everyday life, which is a major source of insecurity today for people everywhere around the globe. Culture of violence as vivid in daily life, particularly against women and children, as it is on television screens, affects industrial and developing countries and rich and poor alike. Blah, blah, blah. We strongly endorse community initiatives to protect individual life, to encourage the disarming of civilians, foster atmosphere of security in neighborhoods. Nor particularly in the U.S. do these global pundits have their way. Will there be any access to easily concealable small arms, even before the total disarming of the world's population is accomplished? They cite under the heading, the impact of small arms, this stuff here. Those who have died in the war, August 1945, have for the most part been killed by cheap, mass-produced weapons costing little more than a transistor, radios, and dry cell batteries, which have flooded the world in the same period. Because cheap weapons have been disrupted life very little in the advanced world outside the restricted areas where drug dealing and political terrorism flourish. Populations of rich states have been slow to recognize the horror this pollution has brought in its train. Little by little, though, recognition of the horror is gaining ground. You can be pretty sure national police and the UN's own army will not be affected by any anti-pollution legislation or UN treaties passed to correct this environmental blight, however. Just the workers in the new global plantation, who might just take it into their own hands someday to engage in random acts of resistance or rise up en masse. Just that is us. So you want to know why they're orchestrating all these shootings to take our guns, guys? This is exactly why. It's as simple as they want to maintain a state of totalitarianism in the New World Order. But that's going to be it for today because we're really far in. Let's pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not unto temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.